Hi everybody, and welcome to a special fan commentary track for Clash of the Red Rangers, a movie event for both Power Rangers Samurai and Power Rangers RPM. 11 years ago, when Nickelodeon aired this special for Samurai, it aired after the last major episode of Power Rangers Samurai's first season, The Ultimate Duel, and before Christmas Together, Friends Forever, the first Christmas episode of Samurai. But Clash of the Red Rangers takes place after Super Samurai's fourth episode and before episode 5 of Super Samurai, that being the rescue. Whereas for RPM it takes place between Ancient History and Key to the Past. Okay, fair enough. I remember when this episode first. Okay, not episode, movie. Okay, let's just put it that way simply. Movie, when they released this special, I was like, okay, when they did the special, they had released it around the time they because again, this was around the Thanksgiving weekend of November, the Thanksgiving weekend of 2011. And I remember watching this as it aired, and I was baffled, like, wait a minute, this takes place after the first season, before Super Samurai, and of course the opening credits, you have some footage from the movie itself for the opening credits, giving away some key scenes that was spoiled to me, but again, it makes sense for the special. And yes, it does take place, for Super Samurai, it does take place between Something Fishy and the rescue. But though, I thought that when as believed that, well, it was never going to be separated as Clash of the Red Rangers Part 1 and Part 2 or anything with the proper Super Samurai opening intro. So, therefore, I wasn't really sure whether it would take place. Okay, yeah, I know, I'm a little messing up here a little bit. But what I'm trying to say is, now, when it comes to some of the stuff that I saw from Clash of the Red Rangers, I haven't talked about this team-up movie in some time, for Power Rangers. Although I have talked about the extended Legendary Battle. My commentary track for that has been up since, 2 years ago. I wanted to do a commentary track of Clash of the Red Rangers for some time. Yeah, Jonathan Zacher directed all of this. And James W. Bates script for the movie, so it makes sense. So it's like a full hour movie, like a 40-minute movie, 45-minute movie of sorts, while Legendary Battle was like 55 minutes. So this was basically, again, this was before Legendary Battle extended, but Clash of the Red Rangers is roughly 11 minutes shorter than what we already know. Oh, great, that Nihilok destroying some buildings. I mean, by the time when Samurai first season happened, it had already been 10 years since Time Force, so the building destruction stuff, we can handle that kind of building destruction stuff since it's already been past 10 years since 9/11, although I'm still peeved about the post 9/11 edits of Time Force we still have after all those years since those attacks. While they did adapt one episode of Shinkenger for the movie, with the shark jaw monster, most of the footage is basically footage from the Shinkenger movies, that being Shinkenger vs. Goanger and Shinkenger the movie, The Fateful War. So when we get to the movie footage, it's more rather it gives a more cinematic scope, if you will, to say the least, for the thing. If the movie had a much lengthier runtime, like up to about an hour and 5 minutes. Because from what I heard in an interview with James W. Bates, when it comes to the other RPM Rangers besides Scott, the other RPM Rangers were supposed to appear with the actors for Jim and Gemma, Summer, Flynn, Ziggy, and Dylan under different pseudonyms because Jonathan Zakor, man. Once I get to my gripes about why we only have one RPM Ranger instead of like have the others, because Shinkenger versus Goanger, everybody was together for that. But it sucks that again when we get to Scott coming back as Ranger Operator Series Red, it just makes things very, very awkward. I forgot to mention that the reason why Antonio isn't properly in the movie event was because Steven Skyler, who is Antonio's actor, was busy on another project. Thus, that's why voice actor Jeremy Burchell, who had some various voice roles in Power Rangers during this point, and even some voice roles in the Disney era, would do the voice of the Gold Samurai Ranger. Okay, that makes sense. Also, while when this movie appeared on Nickelodeon as a TV movie event, there was a few things that spoiled me for Super Samurai. Like, first, Serrator. Like, Serrator wouldn't appear until like something fishy, because but when this appeared in November of 2011 for Thanksgiving, and I think Clash of the Red Rangers does make a good Thanksgiving tradition for me with Power Rangers. Watching Clash of the Red Rangers now every Thanksgiving, because even though it's not 2011 anymore, but it's just giving me a little bit of that nostalgia, because again, I was 18 at the time when 19 years old when this special happened in 2011. Yeah, but Serrator, so it makes sense with the continuity placement that Serrator has to appear here, because he just appeared in the previous episode. Makes sense. Also, Dayu and Decker are out, so again, gotta remember, given the continuity placement. I don't know where Professor Cog came from. Maybe he was probably a rejected general for Venjix. It's just, I don't know how did Professor Cog came to be, because where did he come from is anywhere clear, because we never even get to know whether if he came from, but yeah, he came from RPM's dimension. But why isn't it that Venjix didn't even know anything about him? I do like Professor Cog. He does fit the aesthetic for RPM. If he was in RPM proper, but they didn't think about it because, not only that, at the same time when Shinkenger was airing, Power Rangers RPM was airing and had its episodes air while the season was still in production, and when production had concluded. So I guess they had to wait until we get to this team up to include him. I also like the fact that Professor Cog was the only enemy from this movie to appear in Super Mega Force as a returning legacy villain, related to RPM. So, this New Zealand monorail station has been used a couple of times in Power Rangers. I've first seen it since for SPD, with that monorail station for Space Patrol Delta. It's been used in other seasons of Power Rangers, but it has been commonly used in this event TV movie thing. So like the train here from the main dimension to RPM dimension, that train takes Scott back. When after this is over, he goes back to RPM's dimension somehow with that train. Man, Kevin, you don't want to enjoy ice cream, but yet you rather have vegetables. And like Peter Parker says, eat your green vegetables. Okay, this bit here with that car dropping in front of the Rangers, that was also in Shinkenger versus Goanger. Because I have seen Shinkenger versus Goanger at the time of this recording last year. Okay, some of the footage of the construction workers being attacked by the grinders, some of it was American footage, some of it was Sentai footage. Most of it was American footage, I think, if I stand correctly. Well, since this did take place during Super Samurai, but again, when I saw this TV movie on Nickelodeon 11 years ago, with Jaden's hairstyle, the hairstyle Jaden had and Emily, that was during Super Samurai era. But since this had to air out of chronological order, it did give away a few things, though, for Season 2 of Samurai. You know, looking at the movie footage of Shinkenger vs. Goanger is just so cinematic compared to the usual Sentai footage of Shinkenger in itself for Power Rangers. And using movie footage, I know this is the last time we used any Sentai movie footage for a Ranger team-up was in Trakeena's Revenge, where they adapted Gingaman vs. Gogo 5 vs. Gingaman's movie footage. But what I did mended with that team up, at least when we had Trakeena's Revenge, we had both the Lightspeed and Galaxy Rangers present. The only misstep there is that if Mike didn't lose his Magna Defender powers, and again, in Gogo 5 vs. Gingaman, Hyuga still had Bull Black's power. But like I said back there. But in Clash of the Red Rangers, in comparison, we only have one RPM Ranger. But again, the others couldn't show up because reasons and due to what was going, if they were to appear, but they had to follow under pseudonyms because, Saban, mainly Jonathan Zakor, was so against the Disney Rangers for some reason. But yet, we have a Disney Ranger here. And I don't know why Emily would say that that's Jaden in that RPM suit, knowing Jaden is right with y'all, but like, and then she's going to say that's another Samurai Ranger? Nah, like, come on. You serious? Some of the dialogue for Emily in this thing really baffles me when I think about it in retrospect. Scott being a hotshot. Well, if this does take place between ancient history and the episode when we find out about Dylan and Tanai being brother and sister and key to the past, does Dr. K even know Jaden is somewhere else? I mean, not Jaden, Scott, sorry. God, I'm getting these Red Rangers mixed up. No wonder that's why this thing is called Clash of the Red Rangers. God damn it. Now I feel dumbfounded like Emily right now. Yeah, a nice signature move of what Scott does in RPM with, defeating the Grinders with that signature move. Matrix moves, of course. Yeah, Jaden isn't pleased that this Red Ranger came out of nowhere and took all the credit for himself from the other Rangers. Yeah, Ranger Red, but now when we get to the part when they take him to the Shiba house, of course, you can't demorph in their dimension because, well, when we see Gemma later on in Dimensions in Danger and Ninja Steel, at least she could demorph into the Prime Power Rangers universe just fine. But it's just, with Scott, it's a totally different story. Yeah, I know. It seems like now that Mike, seeing Mia and Emily with Scott, now it seems like, oh, they want to get in gear with him. Ranger 3? Oh, okay, let me shut up. But it's like, goddamn, even the girls are pining for Scott. Yo, Mentor G with the bike, with the flame decals. Oh yeah, the reason why Mentor G has the motorcycle is because his Sentai counterpart of Akoma and Shinkenger has the motorcycle. Makes sense. Because I was just watching Shinkenger. Don't even think about it, Scott. You have your little you have your car back in your dimension. So what makes you think you want Mentor G's bike? Don't even think about it. He's really amazed of the look of the Shiba house, but looking at how outdated and too regal and too traditional Japanese like for their likening, even though the Ranger team here is diverse. Shut up, Kevin. Again, Scott is the only Ranger from RPM to appear, but one of the reasons why he could not appear unmorphed is because Ika Darville had joined the Screen Actors Guild after RPM finished, and he was contractually forbidden to appear in non-union projects. Much like for a lot of Screen Actor Guild actors, any actors that are part of the Screen Actors Guild cannot appear in something non-union like Power Rangers. So that's why they have to fall under like some other pseudonym alias, so they won't use their usual real name while being a part of the Screen Actors Guild. So using their real name and likeness without the correct wages, being paged, and then so it says here, from what I read from the Ranger Wiki article for the notes about why Ika Darville could not be unmorphed and show his face. Is because he's contractually forbidden to appear in something non-union like Power Rangers again, because since the body is still doing the non-union thing, and using his real name and likeness without the correct wages being paged. And then Darville later confirmed that those wages were not paid, which resulted in him only recording his lines in studio in Los Angeles while filming occurred while Power Rangers was still being filmed in New Zealand. So there's a reason why we don't see Scott unmorphed. But yet, we see Gemma in Ninja Steel's Dimensions in Danger, and she's just fine. Yeah, stand-in for Antonio. So again, because Steven Skyler was still busy doing another project, whatever that project was. So... Oh yeah, and those gold headphones that Antonio had in Shell Game and Super Samurai. Okay, and then of course they just only have to cut through. They only had to cut a bit of the morph sequence to not show his face because his actor was not going to be for the episode, and it would feel weird showing Steven Skyler's Antonio's face for that morph sequence with a voice dubber. Mia and her god awful fucking cooking, man. I hope Mako's cooking is any better. And also, Mike, why would you think you would give him a piece of your food knowing how can he eat with his Ranger helmet on? That's stupid. To be honest though, Mia's cooking sucks. I'm sorry. I hate to keep saying that. Yeah, even Mike's face even says it too. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mia. Duty calls, but still, your cooking sucks. And Mentor G doesn't like it that Scott took his bite. And he's going to do it again when Jaden and Scott go after Professor Cog, but then they have this little race, and while Jaden takes a shortcut with a horse while he's on the motorcycle. Now, in Shinkenger versus Goanger, Kegaliza and the other generals were present in this footage. Of course, it makes sense to cut out, where the Gold Ranger is fighting the Cogs. I mean, the damn Cogs. I'm thinking about the Cogs from Zeo. Sorry. I mean, the Grinders. I'm getting confused because, what's so different about, what's so funny with Zeo, with Power Rangers Zeo and Power Rangers RPM. They both have machine empires, but one is that of an alternate dimension kind of machine empire that wants to kill all of humanity and what's left of it. And the other machine empire was during the Zordon era where they wanted to destroy Earth, but they failed at it. Until their all-out invasion came space with Countdown to Destruction. And so the Seven Rangers battle Professor Cog. I just really wish that when we had Professor Cog again as Super Mega Force, one of the RPM Rangers could have appeared to fight, to fight Cog in the Prime Dimension, or actually team up with the Super Mega Force Rangers in the Prime Dimension. But of course, Jonathan Secor was so against the Disney teams, and how, like he said, the Disney Rangers are not, canon to the Sublime Rangers, and yeah, I'm just really baffled with all the shit Jonathan Secor said about the Disney seasons. And while you have one RPM Ranger here, but sucks we don't have an RPM Ranger. When Super Mega Force did their pseudo tribute episode to that season, in the driver's seat, instead of them yelling at a race car that would be in an additional Zord for them to form the legendary Megazord with. That line where Scott says, "I'm a Power Ranger, I never give up." Yeah, we've heard that a couple times from another Red Ranger, Wes, in one episode of Time Force. So those bullet spikes that Professor Cog shot at both Scott and Jaden is why they turned against each other. But then we learned that Mentor G would make something to make it look like they were really hating each other for their clashing. And so the other Samurai Rangers go into RPM's dimension, if you even call it RPM's dimension, portal, wormhole, and pushing the Red Rangers into the water, and the 5 remaining Samurai Rangers go into RPM's dimension. Somehow. I wish that while the movie was intended to be lengthier, we could have got to see how the other Samurai Rangers would interact with Dr. K and them and the other RPM Rangers in RPM's dimension. But since again, a lot of majority of RPM's cast had moved on and had joined the Screen Actors Guild, so it's just, well, some of them, but it just sucks that we don't get to see Dr. K or Gem and Gemma or Ziggy, my boy Dylan, not even my other boy from RPM, Flynn. Man, so you mean to tell me when a Power Ranger falls into water, especially in a lake, the suit is waterproof? Even RPM's suit, like, you sure Dr. K didn't make those suits waterproof if the Rangers fall into any water, even though there hasn't been much water where they're from in RPM's dimension when Vengeance was still attacking that apocalyptic wasteland in the Dome City of Corinth? I do, in fact, like the tension between Jaden and Scott, even though Professor Cog did something to make them hate each other. But then, of course, Mentor G would use one of his Samuraiser, make a symbol power, and use 2 things to put for Jaden and Scott to use in case they strike each other when we get to that big clash between the two. Oh, and General Gut for those... No, General... Well, okay, General Dread, but General Gut... Okay, that's General Gut, but General Dread, for those who didn't know, General Dread was voiced by none other than Jeff Dolan, who would do the voice of Gosei later on in Power Rangers Megaforce, but also was I'll always remember Jeff Dolan mainly doing the voice of Korag in Mystic Force. But he has also done other voices in Power Rangers as well. So in the Netherworld where the Nihilocks are, Professor Cog pours some of the Sansu River down RPM's dimension. I must wonder how they're dealing with that in their dimension right now. Yeah, those bullet shots to make those black bullets that shoot at the Red Rangers to make them have all that anger and hatred. Yeah, even G's still not used to seeing a Ranger still in morph form. And he doesn't like that these two are still fussing after what happened. Oh, that red horse we'll see later on when we get to the Sentai footage when the Rangers are on the samurai horses from the Fateful War movie from Shinkenger. Okay, that makes sense. Oh boy, you had to take his goddamn bike again. Seriously, G, I think you need to get some stolen motorcycle insurance or something. If your vehicle gets stolen, call up someone like, I don't know, if there was a version of Geico or Progressive for motorcycle insurance or any stolen vehicle insurance from somewhere in the Power Rangers universe. This dude just mad because he's on a horse and you on the bike. Well, samurais ride horses and you on a motorcycle. Just because you're on a bike doesn't mean you're better than him. I think the motorcycle mentor G has is a Harley Davidson bike, I think. It's got to be a Harley Davidson motorcycle because there's a handful of those motorcycles like that from Harley Davidson. Oh, wow, look at that landscape of New Zealand's mountains. Man, I just wish one day if I traveled to New Zealand. Slow motion shot of him on the horse. This whole thing with these two Red Rangers, it feels like who has the faster form of transportation than the other. Kind of like a dick measuring contest, who has the bigger one, I guess. Yeah, while he took a shortcut, you're just taking the long road to get around to get to the battlefield. And see, look at how many shortcuts Jaden has taken. 1, 2, 3, 4. Horse dick. Yeah, you're still on the road and he's still taking shortcuts through the woods. And you're already at the battlefield. And he beat you. You mad, bro? You jelly? I do like they did shot some of this stuff with Jaden fighting Moogers and Grinders and American footage, but we have to now cut to the Sentai footage of the fight. The Sentai footage can work, but I wish if they had the money, they should have shot some shots that seemed a bit too violent from the Sentai version and just reshoot it all in American. And thus, we get to what the title of this movie was about. Clash of the Red Rangers. One from the main universe, and the other from RPM's universe. Dimension. Whatever. I really underestimated this fight. While I may have not been a big fan of Samurai when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and even came up to when Megaforce came along, and I still didn't like Samurai. Dino Charge, when that came, I still didn't like the season. But yeah, parts of Samurai is starting to grow on me a little bit. But even though Samurai's still not a good season of Power Rangers, but there's some things to like about Samurai. But man, oh man, wait until I get the Ninja Steel. Trust me. This fight between Scott and Jaden, this was lifted from how Go On Red and Shinken Red fought, Takeru and what's his name from Go On Red. And man, you had to hit him that hard with the spin sword into the chest and almost try to cut his elbow off. And then kicked him in the chest. Okay, man, this fight is epic. I mean, you can easily, like, if ever we get Lightning collection figures for both the Samurai Red Ranger and the RPM Red Ranger, I would love to see anyone do a stop motion video for YouTube if Hasbro does do Lightning collection figures for RPM Red and Samurai Red to recreate this fight. Or some other variant of that way. I mean, you got the Nitro Blaster still, but he has the sword. I'm sorry, but what makes you think the blast from your gun will be any penetrable to his sword? and you knocked Jaden Smith's sword out of his hand. And then what's so cool about it is that while they both fired at the same time, that was a draw. And thus the spell was broken. So they wasn't really fighting at all. Used a RPM medallion for Jaden, and a symbol power piece of paper for Scott. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, because again, Rangers fighting other Rangers, even though they're good, but they were put under an evil spell to face each other. You know, this is kind of like a Forever Red 2.0, but if only we had more Red Rangers. Oh yeah, that flashback, that was cut from earlier in the episode, if the movie was lengthier. Huh, that's funny. Mentor G with a Samuraizer. Also with the brown kanji. Well, again, in that one episode of Shinkenger I watched, with that Richard Brown character claiming to be Shinken Brown. Like, again, if we ever had a brown samurai ranger somewhere. Would have been funny if they did do a brown samurai ranger. But again, Mentor G is too old to be a ranger. But still, just imagine. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that was nice that, Mentor G didn't know he had his own Samuraizer. Out of nowhere. On to the fight of the two Red Rangers. Now, working together to face Grinders and Moogers at the same time, as well as General Dread. The guy. Oh, Grinders as motorcycles, but one Grinder, a Mooger, has to ride on its back. That's just dumb. But then here comes Jaden using his Samuraizer to use a symbol power to bring out a car and call it a pony. When really it's basically a Jaguar car, which was also from lifted from the Shinkenger vs. Goanger movie. But I know what licensed vehicle was there, because looking at the if you can briefly look at the front of the vehicle, I think it has to be a Dodge vehicle, I think. But of course, they can't show it due to licensing reasons, even in Power Rangers. But yeah, they're riding a Dodge vehicle, and of course, you can't show the logo of the vehicle because you don't have the rights. Yeah, you can briefly see, especially when we get to the shot where Jaden uses Scott's Nitro Blaster to shoot at General Dread. You can briefly see the logo of the licensed vehicle maker of the car that they used from the Sentai footage. Wow, and this is going to be the only time Scott would ever use a samurai power disc for his Nitro Sword. Don't tell Dr. K you worked with another team of Rangers and had some power-up that won't be used for this movie. And never to be mentioned during RPM's run chronologically in their timeline dimension. Although it was great that Jaden gave him the disc so he can become somewhat a super ranger, super samurai kind of ranger, super samurai RPM, whatever kind of ranger. Yeah, that's nice. Oh, and now since the other Samurai Rangers show up, this is the part that always bugged me even a decade later since this season and movie. Hey, Scott, your team said hi. Ugh, yeah, I know. But it's just like, it's such a damn shame we don't get to see the other RPM Rangers in this. But, if you couldn't get their actors, like I said, maybe they should have just gotten, any stand-in actors wearing the RPM Ranger suits for gold, silver, yellow, blue, green, and black. And just don't have, their actors just doing voice dubs, but under pseudonyms. Because, again, Power Rangers went back from... Well, Power Rangers is still non-union still at this point. And it's going to be hard for the show to be completely unionized. But even though since Hasbro has the franchise now, it's going to be hard for the series to be fully unionized, to start having people of the Screen Actors Guild to be and make Power Rangers fully unionized. But that's going to be complicated because it's never going to happen. Now, whatever footage from Shinkenger versus Go-Onger they used is done. Now we just got to cut to footage from Shinkenger, The Fateful War movie. You know, Clash of the Red Rangers isn't that bad, the way how they used 3 different Shinkenger source footages. Like, one episode of Shinkenger for the Shark Jaw monster, then the Shinkenger versus Go-Onger movie for the team-up stuff, and then, lastly, the Fateful War movie from Shinkenger for the 3rd and final act. See, the same horse that Jaden was riding, but then the other Rangers get their own horse. Wow, this is like the Last Samurai. No, Dynasty Warriors with Power Rangers. Anybody up for a game of Dynasty Warriors after this? After watching this? Yeah, I still recall Dynasty Warriors, that video game series. Yeah, this is like, if Power Rangers did have a Dynasty Warriors game, even though Bandai Namco, even though when Power Rangers still had a toy license with Bandai, you know, Bandai Namco had a video game license with Power Rangers to a degree for video games for Samurai and Megaforce. It would have been cool if Bandai Namco did a Dynasty Warriors Power Rangers game based around Power Rangers Samurai or something, because again, we got Samurai Rangers, so it would make sense. You know, the fight, you know, the footage from the Fateful War with the Rangers fighting Moogers on their horses is freaking epic. I'll give it that. But then okay, they did quickly digitally insert the red car that Scott and Antonio are in, because that was not in the Fateful War movie in Shinkenger. Some of it, what I did like how they blend in the Sentai footage with American footage of this very well too. So Clash of the Red Rangers did a good job blending in footage creatively from the Shinkenger movies for this team up movie. Oh, this final showdown. Oh, this showdown with Jaden and General Gut is pretty cool too. Even though General Gut is only in the movie, and so is General Dread and Sharkjaw. Movie exclusive Nylox for Power Rangers. And in fact, I forgot to mention in the beginning of the commentary track that, well, if you're watching Clash of the Red Rangers on DVD or wherever you're watching it, if you're following along the commentary track, damn, I lost my train of thought here. You know, General Gut and Dread will not be mentioned in the, you know, oh, no, I forgot to mention, while Clash of the Red Rangers is a TV movie, this is in continuity with Power Rangers, but even though we only say that Turbo Power Rangers movie is the only one that's canon to the show, but Clash of the Red Rangers, while it kind of counts as a movie, but it still takes place within Power Ranger Samurai's storyline. It does take place in the season, mainly Super Samurai. So this is another Power Rangers movie that is in continuity with the TV series. Because, again, it's still the TV show, but, again, it's part of the season. Unlike Turbo, where that movie was basically episode 0 of Turbo, this is basically episode 5 of Super Samurai, well, season 2 of Power Ranger Samurai, if you like to call it. And again, when I watched this on Nickelodeon 11 years ago, this team-up movie did spoil Super Samurai Mode, and even though, yeah, it's a spiffy power-up. And one of the few nitpicks I still have about this team-up, when it did air on Nickelodeon back Thanksgiving of 11 years ago, they aired this. They spoiled Super Samurai Mode and the Shark Zord early, but now it makes sense if you're watching it part of Super Samurai. But it's just when Nickelodeon aired this out of order, like they did the Team Unites earlier, having a Green Ranger episode being the first episode, it just messed up a lot of stuff about with the continuity. And also in Shinkenger, the Shark Zord counterpart is really a T-Rex. It's really actually a dinosaur themed sword, and it roars like a T-Rex in Shinkenger because I was just watching the Sentai. And why do they dub it as some, that was a common thing in Power Rangers. Like, once Power Rangers take something that they think it is, but then turn around, they call it something else. That is one of the few nitpicks I do have, with Power Rangers. Sometimes what was called in Sentai is called something else in Power Rangers, given how it looks in a certain way. But the Shark Zord is really a T-Rex saber. Why did they call it a shark? I mean, just because it looks like a shark, but it's not technically a shark. And I do like how the Megazord cockpit footage for this fight looks well cinematographed. It looks more cinematic as opposed to how it looks in the show. And then the Sentai footage of the Rangers and the Megazord fighting General Gut is also epic too, especially with the music, the cinematography, the use of the Sentai footage. Yeah, and the Shark Zord does act as a weapon for the Megazord also, sometimes. But again, the way how it was in Shinkenger, this would be a T-Rex Zord. Okay, T-Rex folding god, as it's called. Because what I also know is when watching Shinkenger, for those who didn't know, because I finally watched Shinkenger, yeah, Shinkenger was pretty good. It was a pretty good series, even though after watching Power Ranger Samurai first and then watching the Sentai years, if not a decade later, watching Shinkenger can feel pointless for those who have watched Samurai, and then going to Shinkenger, or if you watch Samurai, watching Shinkenger, Samurai can be, when watching is pointless. But yeah, this was what it was called. It was called a T-Rex Zord. It was not a T-Rex folding god. Not a Shark Zord, but what the heck. So General Gus defeated Megazord. The Megazord defeated him. Ranger saved the day. And that's it for our team-up movie. And Samurai Rangers, victory is ours, as usual. Of course, they had the green screen in the Gold Ranger and American footage because, again... Well, that car is totaled, so, now what? And again, Master Xandra drinking that stuff. It's known as, sake in Shinkenger, even though it's known as medicine here because, again, American Kids show. So that's it for our team up. If this, Clash of the Red Rangers is... I still have some gripes for this team-up episode. There's some things that still bug me, though. But upon my rewatches of it, it doesn't bother me that much anymore compared to when I first saw it at first on TV. So that monorail train does take him back to the RPM dimension. Okay, point noted. I kind of wish that when Super Megaforce did their tribute episode to RPM, instead of using... Well, yeah, they had the Sky Ship, but maybe one of the RPM Rangers, if they ever had any of them to show up in Super Megaforce, they could have took a train. One RPM Ranger could have took a train to get to the main universe, and then the other RPM Ranger... And then another RPM Ranger could have helped the Super Megaforce Rangers try to get that Turbo Falcon Zord... Zord, yeah, that's what it is, Turbo Falcon Zord, instead of the Super Megaforce Rangers chasing after or yelling at it. It would have made sense. Yeah, and you know, I did mind that Scott, you know, told Mike that, you know, if he wanted Emily and stuff, like, yeah. So yeah, farewell, Scott. You'll be missed. Even though it'll be the last we'll hear of Eka Darville in Power Rangers, since he is really occupied with Screen Actors Guild stuff, because it sucks when you're part of the Screen Actors Guild. You can't appear in anything non-union, and can't use your real name in something non-union, because they don't want people to know you're in something non-union like Power Rangers. So back to Super Samurai's main storyline after this, but I know for a fact Mike is still smiling like, yeah, you want that Yellow Ranger ass, you want that ass, I know you want it. And then he's getting all excited, and that's the team up. That's the team up, everybody. So if you want to hear my fan commentary for Legendary Battles in my channel. So that, my friends, concludes my commentary track for this.